The purpose of a computer is to complete tasks more efficiently than we can as humans. As a result, a computer is made up of many different components that are working together to do the things that we want them to do. We can broadly categorize these components into two groups: hardware and software. The hardware of a computer system, in simplest terms, refers to the physical, tangible pieces and parts that support the computing process. Computers are made to complete tasks, and hardware allows us to give the computer commands and for those commands to be executed. The most important piece of hardware is the central processing unit, or the CPU, which executes the individual commands as we give them. Well, where are these commands coming from? We need some way for us humans to interact with our computers, and that's what input-output devices, or I/O devices, are for. This includes things like the monitor, which displays your computer's user interface, like the monitor you're using to watch this video right now. It also includes keyboards that let us type, a trackpad, or even a mouse. All these devices let us interact with the computer and let us give it commands. So once we give the computer a command, how does it store it? That's where memory comes in. There are two types of memory. Main memory, which is also called internal memory, is the storage that holds the commands and software as it's being processed by our CPU. This is also called RAM, or random access memory, since you can access any item of data just as easily and efficiently as all the other data stored in your main memory. The thing with RAM, however, is that it only stores the information and software that's being used. When the computer is turned off, RAM's contents are cleared out. So where does our data go when we're not using it, but we still need to hold on to it? This is where secondary memory comes in. Secondary memory, which is also called auxiliary memory, is the storage that stores the software and data in a relatively permanent manner. This can be in the form of a hard drive or an SSD or things like USB flash drives. Compared to RAM, secondary memory is a lot slower than the speed of our computer's CPU, so it can't keep up with our computer's processing power. That's why RAM is so important. It's high-speed internal memory. RAM loads the programs and data it needs from secondary storage as the computer is running, and then it clears everything out when the computer is turned off, with everything being saved back into the secondary storage. It's also good to note that since RAM is so much faster, it's also a lot more expensive. 1 byte of RAM costs nearly 100 times as much as 1 byte of hard disk storage. That's why your computer might have only 8 gigabytes of RAM, but 128 gigabytes in the hard drive. So the interaction between our two types of memory is sort of alluding to the idea that our hardware components interact with one another, and that's exactly what's going on. Let's try and picture this. So we have a program stored on some secondary memory device, let's say your computer's hard drive. Using your keyboard and monitor, the input-output devices, you instruct the computer to run that specific program. A copy of the program is brought from secondary memory and is stored in the main memory, your RAM. The CPU reads individual program instructions and then executes them one at a time until the program ends, and as the CPU is running the program, any data that the instructions might need is also brought from our hard drive into our RAM. If we need to type any information into our program, the RAM stores that data as well. Our program that's being processed by the CPU might display some information to an output device, so we can look at our monitor to see what our program is doing during execution. Okay, great. So that's how all of our hardware components are working to run our program. But what about the program itself? That's not something we can physically touch, but it still exists. Programs fall into the second group of computer components, the software. There are a couple different software categories, so let's break it down. First of all, there's the operating system, so this could be Windows, macOS, or even Linux. The operating system is the core software of a computer, and it has two critical roles. The operating system provides a user interface so that we can interact with our computer, and it also manages computer resources such as the CPU and the main memory. The second type of software is an application, which is a generic term for just about any software other than the operating system itself. This includes word processors like Microsoft Word, web browsers like Google Chrome, database managers, games, and even missile control systems. Most modern operating systems and applications have a graphical user interface, or a GUI, which uses graphical screen elements like windows, icons, menus, and scroll bars, basically anything we can point and click to. So there we have it. That's our first look at a computer and the different parts of it that make it work. Hardware consists of CPU, memory, and I/O devices, but in order to make our hardware useful and basically bring it to life, we need software, the computer programs themselves.